Hey everyone, it's Zach over there bringing you part 6 of the Tyranid Codex review, which is going to be fast attack. Um, there's a lot of interesting choices here. Competitive list, the Sky Blight really focuses around this section, so I'll talk through it here. Um, really, this one's kind of interesting in that it's fast attack that only has one synapse creature in it, and heavy support. I don't think heavy support has any synapse creatures in it. Oh, Trigon Prime. So they each get one uh, synapse, whereas elites have. I guess elites just have one. Troops have two if you count the Turbion, and then obviously headquarters is full a lot. So, um, and strikes don't have models, so it's kind of hard to field them. But we'll talk through that. So Raveners, these guys are pretty neat. I do own like 8. How many do I have? Do I have 18? I think I have 18 of them. They're West Skill 5, Bliss Skill 3, Strength 4, Toughness 4, Wounds 3, Initiative 5, Attacks 3, Leadership 6, Save 5 plus. They are unit type beasts, which makes the unit as good as it is. They have 2 sets of Scything Talons. You can upgrade them for. There's a number of things you can upgrade them with, but I always give them Rending Claws. Like I just assume they're 35 points because you got to take Rending Claws with them. And they have Deep Strike, Instinctive Behavior Feed, and very bulky. So with Instinctive Behavior Feed, you've got to keep them in synapse range of something. And I'd always kind of hoped that the Tyranid Prime would get upgrade abilities for like a Ravener body or like the wings, so he could join strike units and move around with them. But that's never been the case, sadly. So again, Weapon Skill 5 makes him a little bit better in close combat than your average Joe. Initiative 5 too is very helpful. With Rending Claws, they have 4 attacks, 5 on the charge, but they don't have a lot of upgrades. Really, the key difference between Raveners and Shrikes, which is the one I'm going to do next, is that they're the same points. If you give them Rending Claws, they're the same points for each, but the difference is the Beast is a little bit better, I think, than Jump Infantry. And that being said, though, Shrikes are synapse creatures. Shrikes really took a big price cut, so I think in the current codex, you might consider taking Shrikes over Raveners because they're the same in every way, except they get synapse and access to more upgrades, which are corresponding more expensive. But like Raveners, you'll just never be able to take Lash with Bone Swords or Rending Claws, and they can't hold down part of the table themselves, and they're not fearless. They have to have another unit to babysit them, and the list kind of goes on and on. That being said, I really like Raveners. They have a unique character called the Red Terror. He is Weapon Skill 6, Bliss Skill 3, Strength 5, Toughness 5, Wounds 3, Initiative 5, 4 attacks, Leadership 8, Save 4 plus. So this guy, he's a beast character. He's got 2 pairs of Scything Talons, Prehensile Pincer, which is like a little tail attack, Deep Strike, Instinctive Behavior Feed, and very bulky. So he's Leadership 8, which makes it a little less likely that he'll fail Instinctive Behavior. He's unupgradable, but his big appeal is his Swallow Whole rule. If the Red Terror hits with at least 4 attacks, 4 of its close combat attacks in single phase, excluding its Prehensile Pincer attack, you may nominate a single enemy infantry, jump infantry, or jetpack infantry model in base contact with the Red Terror and attempt to swallow it whole. If you choose to do so, no root to wound rolls are made for any of the Red Terror's attacks, excluding its Prehensile Pincer attack. Instead, the nominated model must pass a single invulnerable save if it has one, or be removed from play as a casualty. There's no need to decide beforehand if you will attempt to swallow model whole. Declare after rolling to hit. Enemy models with either very bulky or extremely bulky special rule cannot be nominated as targets to be swallowed whole. If no models of the target unit can be nominated, the Red Terror cannot choose to swallow whole and must roll to win normally. So, you know, every once in a while you'll swallow Drago or whatever, but it's really limited. Very bulky is anything bigger than Terminator, like suits, crisis suits, and you can't take out a bike with it. I think you should be able to take out a bike because obviously you just eat the guy off the bike, but whatever. Kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever had that happen before, but with weapon skill 3 or 6, 5 attacks, 4 on the charge, or I'm sorry, 6 on the charge, you should hit with 4 of them statistically on the charge. So it's not like that's unlikely to happen. It's just if they have an invulnerable save, they might make that. Who knows? Oh, sorry, it's early in the morning here. All right, strikes. Strikes are weapon skill 5, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, toughness 4, 3 wounds, initiative 4, so they do take a hit on initiative. Attacks 3. Oh, and they actually have 1 less attack. Leadership 10, save 5 plus. Their jump infantry. Devour, Scything Talons. They come with a gun and Scything Talons. But I would just switch out the Devour. Rending Claw is a good choice to keep them cheap. Somewhat effective there. They can also take frag grenades, so that puts them 1 up on the Raveners because those are pretty cheap. They're like 3 points a model. Independent character. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the Tyranid Prime only. They combine all the profiles. But their Shadow and Warp Synapse creature are very bulky, so they are. They get more upgrades, but they also become a little bit more expensive. But for the same points, you get the same, almost the same. They just lose an attack and point of initiative. But then you can add a guy in for Lash with Bone Sword. You can do a lot of different things. I will go back to Raveners real quick and say that they can take thorax guns. So they basically they can take Death Spitters in their thorax, so they don't lose any close combat attacks, but they also have a gun. So that's also something worth considering. I have 18 Raveners and only 6 strikes, but the 6 strikes have Lash with Bone Sword, which isn't nearly as good as when you used to just ignore armor saves. So I will probably play Raveners in my games, and they're so close that if you have Synapse, like again 3 Flying High Tyrants, you will not run out of Synapse. So that's kind of a moot point, even though they're a little more restricted on where they can go. So yeah. Did I say Raveners have 4 attacks? They only have 3. Yeah, so they have the same number of attacks. Woohoo! Okay, so yeah, they're really neck and neck, and really comes down to personal preference more than anything else. But more than the last codex, this codex, they are almost exactly the same. All right, moving right along, we've got Sky Slasher Swarms. I've never ever seen these. I don't have these. They just make an expensive model from Forge World that looks really awesome, but it's just really expensive, and they're just not that effective. Not any more effective than a regular Ripper Swarm. They're Weapon Skill 2, Ballistic Skill 2, Strength 3, Toughness 3, Wounds 3, Initiative 2, Attacks 4, Leadership 5, Save 6 plus. They're fearless, they're instinctive behavior, feed, and swarms. So they cost like 15 points each, I want to say, which is just 2 more points than a regular Ripper Swarm. 18 points. Wow. Okay, so um, yeah, they're just a little too expensive. You can give them various upgrades and stuff, but they don't really make a model for this, and it'd be really hard to convert. And when you did convert, they probably wouldn't look super awesome. So, um, and then the Forge World models are just priced; they're like dollars, prohibitive. So, um, I don't really rate them unless maybe somebody else has a different experience with them than I do. Because I've heard of people trying to use them as like mobile screens for their army, but honestly, gargoyles are better for that. All right, Hive Crones. They're web skill 3, bliss skill 3, strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 5, initiative 5, attacks 3, leadership 10, save 4 plus. They're flying monstrous creatures. They have drool cannons, which are strength 6, AP 4, flamer templates, 4 tentaclids, which are haywire missiles that get to reroll to hit against flyers and flying monstrous creatures. And they're strength 5, AP 5, like all the haywire weapons are. And they have silent talents just in case you ever get in close combat and AP2 isn't good enough for you. You also have AP6. Fearless, instinctive behavior, feed, raking strike, Hive Crone's vector strike is resolved at strength 8. So Hive Crones are 155 points each, and I probably would just leave them. They can take various upgrades, but I would probably just leave them as 155 points. This is the unit that made Skyblight so effective. Strength 8 vector strike is really good. Unfortunately, they've kind of nerfed it where now it's just a single hit, whereas it used to be D3 plus 1. So people used to like vector strike something, D3 plus 1 hits, and then just lay down the drool cannon or fire a tentaclid or something for the monstrous creatures 2 weapons it could shoot every turn. It's got instinctive behavior feed, which doesn't really affect it that much, to be honest, because it'll be flying around and it's not going to fail the test very often, and there's probably going to be a bunch of flying Hive Tyrants to keep it in control. Now, being toughness 5 with it's got 5 wounds and a 4 plus armor save. It used to only have 4. Of course, it also not used to be not as expensive, but the 5 toughness 5 with a 4 plus save. If you get shot at by any kind of autocannon or any kind of flying anti-flyer hate, it's going to be hard to stay in the air because you're going to take a bunch of wounds unless you jink. But then you can't fire your drool cannon, you're snapshotting your tentaclids, and so I just noticed these guys are like, if you're on the ground and somebody sees the initiative on you, you could get hosed really quickly. Any of the flyers, if you're going to start out on the ground, you need a Philanthrope to sit next to you and say, whenever you get shot at, you can jink, you get a 4 plus, and then you're shrouded with the Venomthrope, and now you've got a 2 plus cover save. Pretty handy. So we'll talk formations when I get to it, but the Sky Blight is what made this really good, and the Harpies was the other part of that formation. They're the same kit as the Hive Crone, but they're web skill 3, bliss skill 3, strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 5, initiative 5, attacks 3, leadership 10, save 4 plus. So again, exactly the same stats. Flying monstrous creature, they get this Twin Link Strangle 4 and Cannon, which is strength 6, AP 5, large blast. Scything Talons, and Spore Mine Cyst, which if you fly over something once per game, you can drop D3 Spore Mines, which if you miss, they become Spore Mines, just like a Biovore would. They're fearless, instinctive behavior hunt, which isn't going to affect you very much if you fail it, because you just shoot the closest thing, but you can fly to where the closest thing is, what you want to shoot at. Sonic Screech, when Harpy charges into combat, all enemy models in the combat suffer -5 to their initiative to a minimum of 1 until the end of the assault phase. I used to do it in 5th edition when I had Harpies, but I wouldn't assault with a Harpy anymore. So even though that's a nice rule, it's not really going to come into play very much. Um, the Skyblight formation made you take 2 Harpies and Hive Crone, which is why people took Harpies and Hive Crones, but honestly, I think Hive Crones are a little bit better. That being said, you can upgrade the Stranglethorn cannon on these guys to the Heavy Venom cannon, which I might recommend doing in a Skyblight list, so that way you can threaten armor from range, and it's just a little bit tougher. You can also upgrade these guys to have what are they called? Spine clusters, not spine clusters. Let me look them up real quick. See, having all templates is bad because you can't shoot at other flyers. Stinger Salvo. Stinger Salvo will give you 4 strength 5 shots that you can shoot at flyers. It gives you something to shoot at other flyers with. Otherwise, you have all templates and you can't target enemy flyers. So again, anything that catches on the ground will kill them because 4+ save just is not very good. I remember 5th edition, I had a list where I would take 3 of them, and people would, I remember I played a game against a guy with a Land Raider. He just drove around killing them with assault cannons. He would roll 4 hits, 4 wounds, dead. 4 hits, 4 wounds, dead. And it was sad. But having 5 wounds means that will never happen again, but then that just means you'll shoot 2 assault cannons at them. So those are 2 of the strongest choices in the Codex, by the way, as far as competitive lists go. And I feel like I'm skipping around here a little bit. I missed the Gargoyles because they're under the Gaunt entry. So there's Weapon Skills 3, Build Skill 3, Strength 3, Toughness 3, Wounds 1, Initiative 4, Attacks 1, Leadership 6, 6+, Save, Jump Infantry. They have Fleshboard and Blinding Venom. So basically they're Termagants with jump packs. They have Instinctive Behavior Hunt, which means they get pinned 50% of the time. They have to shoot the closest thing 50% of the time, or the other half, but then sometimes they get Preferred Enemy. Gargoyles. So Blinding Venom changed a lot. They used to be absolutely shredding machines. They would just shred anything in close combat. Because Blinding Venom was on a 6, they would automatically wound, and it would just be an armor save. So like if you rolled 20 attacks and you rolled 4 6s, you just pushed those off to the side and kept rolling, and then they would come back when it came time for armor saves. They used to be incredible at killing stuff. Now, with the changes to poison, you have to actually beat their toughness to get rerolls to wound, and the fact that they used to cost, or they stayed the same cost. It's just the upgrades went up, so now it's 2 points for each one, whereas it used to be just 1 point. I used to always just run them with Adrenal Glands and Toxin Sacs, and they'd get rerolls to wound against Space Marines when they charged, and they would just shred everything. Now I really don't give them any upgrades because it'd be 10 points. That's just too much for a Gargoyle. They're really good at being screens for your army, and I'll have to show my Here Be Dragons list where everything's a flying something. With just some, I just had some Ripper Swarms to hold objectives, wherever everything else flies. But they're really great screens, and now they're just a giant tar pit with blind. Like I played them against Necrons, and the Necrons just cannot chew through them because they drop to Weapon Skill 1 almost every turn, and it's effective. It's really effective. 1 hit means that they have to take a test, and they'll probably fail it. So yeah, that's what the Blinding Venom does. Is on a hit, they have to take a blind check. So it's changed, and it changed their role pretty significantly from killing machines to tar pits. I recommend taking these guys. I think they're one of the better choices in the Codex. They come with the Sky Blight formation, which is what made it so good. Is these guys are really awesome, and they get objectives secured as part of Sky Blight too, which is kind of cool. But I would take them in every list with the Venom Thrope. They get shrouded, and you can kind of stick a tail out of the back of your big gargoyle brood back to the Venom Thrope, so that way they get shrouded, and there's a lot of synergy there. Um, yeah, gargoyles. I have 90 gargoyles, and sometimes I try to put all 90 of them on the table, as many of them as I can, and it's pretty effective as long as you don't get stuck in with like a walker. Um, I guess I should go back to the blinding venom rule. It's not only a blinding check; it also gives you poison 6+, which gets better if you like if you're wounding toughness 4, it's a 5. Even though it's poison 6, it reduces if you need it better to, or if you have a better chance, or like if you're going against toughness 3 creatures, then it would be a 4+, even though it says poison 6+. So that's in the poison rules. If you would need better, that it drops correspondingly. It just gives you a way to hurt Wraith Knights and toughness 5 things and toughness 7 things and whatever you should come up against. But you sacrifice all your attacks to get that one attack. So on the charge, you have to do the math and see what's better, if I just stick with double attacks but without the blinding venom, or do I do the blinding venom attack and force a blinding check and all this other stuff. So gargoyles are very easily one of the better units to tie up, like a Knob Biker Squad or something crazy, or the Wraith Knight, not the Wraith Knight, the Wraiths unit from Necrons. They just tie stuff up the whole game. So I would keep them in mind. They're a very solid choice. Again, 6 points of a model. And I'll end this with the Spore Mines. They are Web Skill Dash, Ballistic Dash, Strength 1, Toughness 1, Wounds 1, Initiative 1, Attacks Dash, Leadership 1, Save Dash, Infantry type. And they are the worst stat line in 40k, but that's okay because they just explode. Their rules are Spore Bomb. That is the Harpies rule. So they're a weapon. They're like a bomb that you can buy. But so they have rules like guns do, but they're actually a model. So the Spore Bomb rules what lets the Harpy drop the Spore Mine bombs. They only scatter D6. Interesting. Spore burst from the final position of blast marker and a barrage is determined. There's no models. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. Basically, if you miss, you get D3. Spore mines. We'll talk about that when we get to Biovores. They have the fearless and deep strike rules, and no instinctive behavior, which is good. Floating death. They move 3 inches in the movement phase. When they run or charge, they move at half the distance rolled, which means they can only move like 9 inches a turn, or 6 inches a turn. Spore mines are never slowed by difficult terrain, but must take dangerous terrain tests as normal. Spore mines do not attack in close combat. It said that initiative 10, the entire cluster detonates. To resolve this, send a large blaster marker over any one of the unit spore mines. Every other unit, friend or foe, under the blast marker suffers a number of hits equal to the number of models under the blast marker. The strength of these hits is equal to 4, but is increased by 1 for each additional spore mine in the detonating cluster to maximum strength 10. These hits are resolved at AP4 and ignore armor saves. Once all hits have been resolved, remove all models in the spore mine cluster from play. So they start out at strength 4 AP4. And if you have like 2 additionals, then it gets +2 strength, and now there's strength 6 AP4, which is kind of cool because if you miss when you shoot your Biovore, you place a couple of these guys, and we count them as being able to assault that turn. So it's kind of cool. My Galaga list, I'll talk about at some point, but they rely heavily on these because they are cheap they can deep strike, and they float around and kind of just hem up your opponent because they don't really want to get close to them. Living bomb spore mine clusters are non-scoring, non-denial units. They do not award victory points when destroyed, and wounds suffered by spore mines in close combat, including those caused by floating death detonation, are not counted when determining assault results. So they really don't count for anything because they're supposed to explode. So they're 5 points each, so you get 3 of them for a brood for 15 points. And I know Lichtershame did really well with the spore mine units. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.